Welcome to Satsang. Hey, sweetie. Such a joy to be together. As usual, we start with a question that has come in advance, and then I'll open it up to any questions that anyone here might have. Is it wrong to have pets? I worry that caging a bird or keeping a cat or a dog in the house is going to result in some really restrictive karma for me in the future. So I think it depends. There's definitely beautiful, beautiful stories from our scriptures of the relationship between humans and animals, that beautiful connection, that beautiful relationship. And so when we think about, having a cat or a dog, for example, well, we've got this beautiful story going back to the time of the Mahabharata, right? Of Yudhishthira and the dog. And he's so connected to this beautiful dog that even when, right, the gates of heaven essentially are open to him, and he's told, climb on this chariot, you will go to the heavenly realms. And he's about to get in, and he brings his dog to get in the chariot. And they tell him, no dogs are allowed. He says, forget it. Now you think we're talking about going to heaven, like for eternity, the heavenly realms, that which everyone dreams of. And this embodiment, Yudhishthira is the embodiment of wisdom, of incredible wisdom, of incredible dharma. Says, forget it. I'm not having any of your heaven if my dog can't come. It's a beautiful story. And it's a beautiful teaching when we realize that the scriptures are teachings. To me, there's obviously a lot of teachings in that story about kindness to animals, about loyalty to anyone of any species who has stood by you the whole time in your times of difficulty, and now it's your moment of glory, and who are you ready to just leave behind because it's time for your glory? And he teaches us, even if that being is a dog, still you should never leave them behind. So many people are so ready in their lives, the moment they get an opportunity of, एक काम करिएगा, ये पंखा थोड़ा सा मेरे ख्याल में कि माइक में गड़बड़ कर रहे हैं. वो जरूरी नहीं है, कोई बात नहीं, दूसरे वाले ठीक है, बंद कर दीजिए उसको. Yeah. I think we're good. I think we were getting a funny sound from them in the mic, yeah. So it's such a beautiful message that when any being has stood by you, never leave them behind. For so many of us, we get a moment, an opportunity, our day in the spotlight, our moment to shine. And we're so ready to just leave behind anyone who's been with us all along. You see it when people get successful. You see it when they get wealthy. You see it when they become buddy-odme, right? How many of the people who have really been by their side throughout, now they don't have time for them. Now they feel too big, too important to associate with little people. And it's such a beautiful teaching. Even when that being is a dog, still you don't leave him behind. Even when the opportunity you've been given is to enter heaven, still you don't leave him behind. So I think from that, the teaching that humans and animals can have very deep and beautiful connections is really clear. So I don't actually think there's anything wrong with having a pet in theory. You know, giving an animal a beautiful life where they're safe, they're well fed, they're loved. It's a gift to the animal as well. You know, it's like adopting a child. The one who had nowhere else to go, now you've brought them into your home. Most pets these days don't come because people are wandering through the forest, setting traps for wild animals and bringing them into their home. I don't think that's right. But given that we have a situation in which there are so many animals being abandoned, so many animals in the pound, in shelters, like children in orphanages, except, or in many cases, if the children aren't adopted in a short period of time, they kill them. So to adopt an animal out of the pound, out of a shelter, or one who comes to you, you know, really, my parents had a cat for years who suddenly showed up at their back door one day, out of the blue, crying. Well, where they used to live was full of coyotes. It was in the hills, and there were lots and lots of coyotes that killed cats. And this cat was pregnant. And somehow she must have intuited, like, this is not a safe place for me to be. She showed up at the back door and, you know, mom let her in and that was it. So I think there's actually a beautiful gift to the animal and to the humans of having those relationships. It also makes us realize how deeply connected we can be to species other than humans. And that's very, very deep spiritually to realize how connected we can be to those of all species. So no, I don't think you're going to get any kind of restrictive karma for having a dog or a cat, as long as you take care. You know, I mean, don't bring a dog into the house if every member of the family is out all day from 5 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, and nobody's got any time to be with the animal, and they're just left alone all day long, every day. I don't think that's a very nice life for the animal. But otherwise, if you're bringing them in to be a member of the family, it's beautiful. That being said, I do think there are some animals that maybe aren't necessarily meant for apartments, flats, enclosed homes. And you know, I've never thought about it like this, but as the questioner asked, maybe birds are one of those animals. Maybe an animal that you have to actually keep in a tiny little, essentially a box, that it's not meant to live in. I don't know. I've never been much of a bird person, so I don't have a definite answer about that. But I think a bird, if you let it go, it's going to fly freely. Cats and dogs come right back home. Right? You've got a doggy door, you've got a kitty door, they go in, they come out. They're going to come right back. They know this is my home. But my instinct is that if you open the cage of a bird, that it would probably fly away. And I think that if that's the case, if an animal of its own accord would leave this place, that might be the right way to decide whether I should be keeping the animal or not. That if when I let it out to go to the bathroom, it comes back, well, it's mine. It's a member of our family. But if I let it out and it flew off, I think we could probably assume that it never was meant to be kept inside to begin with. But I think in general, the idea of having animal friends is really beautiful. And especially these days, I was talking in Arti about Mental Health Awareness Month, and one of the things that's afflicting so many people these days is loneliness. People are really lonely. And if you can have an animal to whom you give love and from whom you receive love, they've done all kinds of wonderful studies of patients in hospitals, elderly people in old age homes, and the impact of having animals around. Puppies, kittens. It actually has a huge impact on them, a very, very healing impact. So I think that relationship is a good one. I wouldn't bring a chimpanzee into your house, as much as I really wanted one when I was young. Couldn't understand. Every year, all I wanted for my birthday was either a chimp or an orangutan. Parents would never give it. But in retrospect, I think animals that really are wild animals should be in the wild. But it's been so long since dogs and cats have been domesticated animals that I think the majority of the cats and dogs in people's houses these days, if you let them out into the wild, most of them probably wouldn't know how to survive. And it's not just that individual animal, it's a species that's been bred. So it's not like, well, if you took it at birth, then it would be able to survive. I think we've altered the genetic makeup of these animals in such a way that I don't actually think so many of them would do so well in the wild. So, let wolves be in the wild. Don't bring them into your house. Let the chimpanzees, let the orangutans, let them be in the wild. Or at least in these beautiful, national parks that are created to protect and preserve them, but not in your apartment. But for cats and dogs who have been bred to really need us, I think it can be a very meaningful and beautiful relationship. And I think wherever you give love, the karmic fruit is sweet. Whether you're giving it to an animal or a human or a tree. I can't imagine a karmic situation that would penalize you for that. Does anyone here have a question? Yes, Anna.
What is the difference between seeking evolution and seeking self-realization? Can we evolve as human beings?
Beautiful. Seeking evolution and seeking self-realization. So when I think of evolution, I think of something that happens collectively, the benefit of which are going to impact those after we are gone. So if we, through our meditative practice, through our practice of inquiry, through our practice of service, we change not just our actions, but the very makeup of our brain changes. There's a lot of science that actually shows that meditation literally changes your brain. Structurally, they've shown on a very basic level, the frontal lobe, especially the prefrontal cortex, actually gets thicker. Meaning that the connections, that you're actually making more and more connections. That area of the brain is changing. And other areas as well, but that's a very easy to measure scientifically one. And what we know about evolution is that we pass it down. We pass it down. And so when I think of working for evolution, I think about the future of the species. And so, for example, if we keep moving in this direction of individualism, it's all about me. I should have as much as I can get. Whether I need to grab, lie, steal, harm, step on other people's heads, oppress them, repress them, abuse them. If we keep moving in that direction, we're destroying our planet. Different scientists will give you different estimates, but it's really kind of anywhere between about 90 years and a few hundred years in which we no longer will be able to inhabit planet Earth. We're just going to push the environment to a place where it's too hot. The ice caps have melted. The oceans have risen. They have wiped away so many of the cities that we've got hundreds of millions of refugees with no place to go, that there isn't enough drinking water, that we've polluted our air, that we've decimated our forests, that we're going to get to a place where planet Earth is just not inhabitable for human beings. And so when I think of spiritual evolution, I think we today, what we are doing is that which we are going to pass on. Now, the easiest way of evolution is we pass it on in our genes. But that's not the only way that things get passed on. You pass things on by impacting them. Yes, some people have to be the ones who are producing babies, or evolution just doesn't happen at all. But it's not that everyone, that it has to come through them. And so that, for example, if you attain self-realization past your childbearing years, that it's not really worthwhile. I don't think that's the case. I think that if you share and teach and impact others, that ripple impact is such that then those who are in their childbearing years are going to give birth, they're going to raise children in different ways. I'm already seeing it. The generations now, I'm seeing children of my friends, or children of people who are, not a full generation beneath me, but maybe half a generation. Children of those who are mid-30s, 40. And these children are being raised differently. even in the face of technology, they're being raised with an awareness of themselves because they're being raised by people who are self-aware. They're being raised by people who, yeah, they're still human, but they're in touch enough with their own issues that they're not trying to make their children live their lives. They're not taking out all of their stuff on their kids. They're not filling their kids with fear and indoctrination. Oh my God, if the neighbors don't like you, you're going to die. Like, you better dress the right way, or oh my God, they're not going to like you. We're really, I think, giving birth to a generation of youth who are being encouraged to really find themselves. I mean, we're seeing it just, for example, much more in the West, of course, than here, but I think eventually it'll come, issues around gender identity, gender fluidity. I mean, no one, when I was growing up, could have even conceived of the idea that they had an option, that there was a choice. You know, and the closest you got was tomboy. But the idea that I actually get to really create my entire life journey, how I move through the world, from the very most basic level of what gender I want to be, or feel like being, or identify as, to what I want to do, to what I want to study. And I think our economy is really supporting it, because if you look back over the last long time, you take anybody, say 60 and over, their themselves, their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, there were really a limited number of professions, right? People were doctors, they were teachers, they were lawyers, they were trash collectors, they were artisans, artists of some sort. They were housewives. There were buckets or boxes of professions. As a woman, maybe you had 10 options to choose from. As a man, maybe you had 20 options to choose from. But today, with the tech boom and what it's done, people are becoming millionaires every day in jobs that didn't even exist when I was in college. And so the economy is actually supporting this, because no longer do you have to get this degree, get this job, move your way up through the ranks, the way that people have had to do for hundreds of years. Suddenly, college dropouts in their garage tend to be the majority of those who are kind of running the world these days. You look at all the tech companies. It's like, yeah, I was a dropout of here, dropout of there, in my garage, in the back of my car. And it's beautiful, because it's really creating this possibility for us to actually make a living in a way that's in alignment with how I identify. I mean, it used to be, okay, you're an artist. Well, if no gallery is going to give you a show, nobody's going to know about your work, you'll never be able to sell it, you'll starve, you better become a waiter instead. Well, today you go online, you make your own site on any one of all of these sites where people sell things. You create a bunch of, viral videos online, and your artwork sells. Now, obviously, this isn't true for everyone, but the possibility is there. And so I'm very excited about our spiritual evolution in that way. Because it can only work if the economy supports it. If nobody can make a living being spiritually evolved, we're not going to be able to go very far. But so many people now, teaching, writing, singing, making music, writing poetry, or being the ones engaged with those who are teaching, writing, running centers, running websites, printing books, running social media, running whatever it is. There's such a new world that has opened up. So spiritual evolution, I think, is something collective. Each of us has the responsibility to be part of that collective. Doesn't mean that you have to be gender fluid. It doesn't mean that you have to have a very obscure type of brand new techie profession. But it just means that each of us is, I think, required to question ourselves, to introspect, to contemplate, to ask, who am I? Who am I? No, I'm not the one whose hair is this, who wears this type of jewelry, this type of clothes. That's not me. I was looking when I was in America a few months ago. So at some people's house, and they had these old magazines from 1959 and 1963. One from 59, one from 63. They were the old big Life magazines in America. And I was going through, and of course the articles were very interesting, like what was news at that time. But even more than the articles, the advertisements were so interesting. Because it was all about this objectification. Women were those, all the advertisements were like ways to look beautiful when your husband comes home from work. Right? Like, are you sweaty from vacuuming all day long? Well, if you just have this, you will be fresh like you've had a shower in time for your husband to come home. It was just... It was this incredible experience of laughing, also kind of crying for them, but also feeling so deeply grateful that that's no longer the world that we live in. The number of appliances they were selling where the sole way to sell them was that they didn't break your fingernails. The iron that you could use that had a handle that actually didn't put pressure on your fingernails when you squeezed so that you wouldn't chip the nail. And the woman with the broken nail, and oh my God, my old iron broke my nail. And the new iron. It was amazing. It was the stuff that everyone would boycott your products if you even had the audacity to come up with a design like this, even if you never published it. If it leaked in your office that you so much as even suggested that an iron should be sold because it didn't break the housewife's fingernail. Right? So we are actually coming a long way in what you can think of as cultural evolution. But cultural evolution is creating this space now, I think, for independent thought. And independent thought is required for spiritual evolution. I have to be able to ask and answer honestly, who am I? And to trust that answer in order to evolve spiritually. And I think we're there. I think we're at a place now where that space has been created for people to have the freedom to ask the questions to have whatever answer percolates through them, to allow it to be there, and to be able to have the courage and the space to move through their world, to recognize we are not slaves to algorithms, we are not slaves to marketing and advertising, or to big business, or to big pharma, or to politics. I mean, I think all of the movements these days, as strongly in favor of vaccines as I personally happen to be, I think the movement of skepticism and cynicism around the vaccine was actually a very, very healthy conversation. Because it created this idea that, wow, just because Big Pharma says it doesn't necessarily mean I need to buy it. And all of this creates that space for us to really dive into, okay, so then, who do I trust? What do I trust? What is my way of knowing? If my way of knowing is not the advertisement I see, how do I know? And then we go back in. And we dive in and we listen. So I think each of us is called to do that today. I think it is our social responsibility to our spiritual evolution as a society. And the more of us who do that, the more the impact ripples out, whether you are actually bearing children or not. Because it's also an energy. Meditation is an energy. Prayer is an energy. Service, surrender is an energy. And that energy goes out. Self-realization is a personal experience. Yes, obviously when I am self-realized, when I am self-realized, I'm going to share that energy. I'm going to share love. I'm going to share truth. My very being becomes a space in which others can also dive into the truth of themselves. But I think of self-realization more as a personal responsibility, and spiritual evolution more as our collective responsibility. And of course they go together, because if I'm going to be part of spiritual evolution, well, I have to be on a path of self-realization. Otherwise, what am I giving to that evolution? What is my value add? What am I sharing? If I'm not on a spiritual path, realizing myself and God more and more every day, then I'm not contributing to that shift in our society, in our world. So they go together. But I think one is more your responsibility to yourself, and the other is the responsibility to the world. Beautiful. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
So my doubt is what's liberation, and how to attain it?
I'm sorry?
What's liberation? Liberation,
okay.
How to attain it, and what's the right age to work towards it?
Beautiful. So liberation, or what we call moksha, it's freedom. Freedom from what? Right? When you say to be liberated, well, it implies that we are stuck. And we are stuck. We're stuck by the chains of the way that our mind works. our minds keep us stuck. Our minds tell us, our minds wrapped up by Maya, tell us, you are your body. You are therefore what it looks like. You are how much it owns, money, possessions, how powerful it is. You are the way others see you. So do you get respect? Are you popular? Are you respected? Are you powerful? Are you famous? All of these things form an identity. That identity is what we call the false identity. But we are stuck in it. And this is why if you actually watch most of your thoughts from the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to sleep at night, every one of them is rooted in this false identity. Either, how can I get more? More money, more possessions, more claim, more respect, more power. How can I protect that which I have? So I'm anxious. Oh my God, what if? What if I'm embarrassed? What if I'm humiliated? What if I fail? What if I lose my money? So we want to get more. We want to hold on to what we have. And we are very focused on the form. What we look like. The clothes we wear. The way we accessorize ourselves, the jewelry, the watches, the cars, the houses. Because we believe that is who we are. And if you watch your thoughts, it's very interesting. You can actually set something on your phone that'll beep every 15 minutes. And I would recommend just doing it for a day. And every time it beeps, write down what you're thinking about. Just take 2 seconds, just write down what thought are you having at that moment. And at the end of the day, I guarantee you're going to be so embarrassed that you're going to tear up that paper, you're going to pretend you never saw it. Because it's all about this false identity. It's greed, it's fear, it's desire, it's judgment. And that's bondage. It keeps us from self-realization. Because it keeps telling us you are that. If you get embarrassed, you will die. Right? I mean, people literally say, died of embarrassment. Think about it. That's an amazing expression we have. An amazing expression. I died of embarrassment. Or I'm going to die of embarrassment. It's that powerful. Oh my God, people are going to laugh at me. It's so powerful that literally I feel like I will die. Or I will want to die. Now you think, where have we gotten so stuck that a group of people thinking that we are silly, incompetent, stupid, dressed funny, clumsy, maybe we tripped and fell, that actually dictates who we are? I died? My ego was embarrassed. Okay, I died? This is ignorance. And we are imprisoned by it. So liberation is freedom from that. Liberation is that which makes us know you have a body, but you're not your body. The body has a story, you are not that story. And for that, we really need to do all of the things that we are given as part of our sadhana package. We read inspiring texts, whether we're reading scripture, whether we're reading commentary on scripture, whether we're reading about the lives of saints and sages. We are taking in information, inspiration that changes how we think. Otherwise, all day long, what we're taking in from our social media, from our TV, from our internet, from our billboards, is all information saying you are your body, you are your body, you are your body. So we shift and we take in truth. When we pray, Asato ma sadgamaya, lead me from untruth to truth. Well, it's not, oh God, I'm just going to keep scrolling Facebook, but if you could just wave your magic wand, that would be great. Well, we have to be active parts of that. If I want to be led from falsehood to truth, I need to seek out truth. It's like saying, lead me from starvation to hunger. Lead me from starvation to fullness, or hunger to fullness. But I'm just going to sit here in front of my empty refrigerator and empty cupboards, and you should just wave a magic wand and, food should fall in my lap. Well, okay, God, show me the way, show me the path, but I'm going to get up. I'm going to do whatever I can to feed myself, to lead myself from hunger to fullness. In the same way, we have to work to lead ourselves from ignorance to truth. And one of the best ways is to bring in that truth first from outside, through books. These days now, of course, with online media, you can even watch it on YouTube, listen to podcasts. But I would suggest also reading. Nothing wrong with YouTube, nothing wrong with podcasts, they're also great. But there is something to be said for unplugged inspiration. That's just you and a book. There's something that actually happens when you are reading. Something very beautiful happens when you listen. Very powerful. Wonderful. It's why we go to satsang. It's why we go to katha. But something very beautiful and different happens when you read. So I would suggest doing both. And then we get also truth from inside. But the outer truth inspires us. It puts us on track. And then we go within. And we look for that same truth that we've been spoken to about. We look to find it inside. So the books, the videos, the podcasts, they're fingers that are pointing, showing us the way. But then we also go within to experience that. And that's the way. We guide ourselves from falsehood to truth. We try to limit the amount of falsehood. And this is where we bring in the power of discrimination. When I was an undergraduate in psychology, I was a freshman, I think, we took a class. The entire class was all about how to change how other people think. And all the techniques around coercion, or convincing, you could say more innocuously, and they teach you. And the whole course was all about all these different techniques that you use to convince people, Techniques used by salespeople, techniques used by advertisers, whether it's the door-to-door salespeople or the TV advertisers. And it was brilliant because, first of all, it was really interesting, but also it actually has inoculated me for most of my life against it, because I became so good at recognizing it. Oh, this is that. Oh, this is that. Oh, this is that. That you see it. You can watch TV, you can read magazines, you can see billboards, you can scroll social media, but you can see what they're trying to do. So use the power of discrimination to keep falsehood away. And use the power of discrimination to bring in truth. And you'll find it. It's in you. It's not out there. It's in here. Beautiful. Yeah. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. And a beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from all over the world. And so much love to all of you.